Cuando quiera.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Football Council. My name is Luis Nunez. I'll be your facilitator for today's class and for the course that we're going to have next week. And for that purpose, I'm accompanied by Dr. Pablo Buera, who is the founder of Derecho del Fútbol, our partner company. And also, as most of you know, is an expert in football law. And of course, we are with our whiskey, Daniel Rodriguez, who is specialized in IT. And he's going to give us all the IT support that we require. Also, guys, take into consideration that Daniel is well-versed in dealing with the FIFA platform. So any support you require in that sense, we will more than glad to provide it to you by means of Daniel. So that being said, I would like to first explain you this program. This course is designed, aimed specifically for prepare you guys to take the FIFA agent exam, of course, but not only take it, our intention, our compromise with you guys is to help you pass that exam and for you to become a licensed FIFA agent. That's our commitment to you, but we're gonna ask something from you in return, but I'll explain that in just a few minutes. So what's the exam like or about? Most of you know it's a multiple choice test. You're going to be examining 20 questions. You got to get 75% of them right. That is at least 15 answers correctly. And you're going to have an hour to do so. So there's an average of 3 minutes per question. Of course, due to the methodology we have in place, we plan for you to maximize at that time in order for if the time allows it, you can go back and even review if the case may be some of the questions. So that's part of the methodology, and that's what we're aiming for. Furthermore, we have for studying purposes identified 3 types of questions, right? The first ones is the ones we have entitled the quick ones. Those are the ones you're going to know by heart. Because we're gonna go dive in deep into the regulations, and once you read it, you'll know. Having said that, guys, we strongly suggest, and we cannot emphasize this enough, please take the proper precautions and read each question very, very careful. Why? Because you're gonna find out that we have questions that tell you there's only one option. We're gonna have questions that will tell you that you have multiple options, and you have questions that will tell you nothing. And at one point, you may have not 1 or 2, but even 3 correct answers. And if you only have 2, you have the question qualified as a wrong answer. So be very careful about that. Again, you're gonna know some of the questions, some of the answers by heart. And you're going to be able to identify in the different options how many correct questions there are, because you're going to know the proper regulations. So those are the quick ones. In any case, please read carefully. Then we got some other questions that even though you know them, you will find it useful to use support documents. This is an open book test, guys. So you're able to use the FIFA regulations in order to answer the questions or to verify if your questions are correct. But since we're going to go and study all the regulations, you are going to be able to do a number of things. You're going to be able to identify in which type of regulation the information you're looking for is. And inside that regulation, you're going to be able to pinpoint exactly and fast where the information that you're looking for actually is, and you can discard or confirm what you're looking for, because you're already gonna know the answers. It's just that there's a lot of requirements, and maybe you don't know the 5 or 7 possibilities that they are, and you only know by heart 3 or 4. That's basically it. So, and then we got a third type set of questions that we have come to know them as trick questions, for lack of a better term, right? What that means is, I don't know. I think FIFA is making these questions in order to make the exam more difficult. And that's okay. We're going to prepare you for that. But in this case, we need to really understand, and we'll help you with that. We got Dr. Pablo Burera, myself. We live working with football agents in football-related regulation activities. So we are going to help you understand the interpretation of the different regulations for you to be able to answer these questions, because most of them are basically example of cases that might happen in your practice as a football agent. So we're gonna go over them also. Bear in mind that sometimes FIFA asks questions in a manner that for most professionals doesn't even make sense. But we do have examples of those questions. We have also prepared questions ourselves, trying to simulate the way FIFA asks those type of questions. So that takes us to our next segment, which is the methodology we're going to use here at Football Council to prepare you for that exam. So, like we said, it's going to be detailed studying of all pertinent regulations, with special emphasis into the FIFA football agent regulations that we overlooked last week, and this one, the regulation on the status and transfer of players. Hereinafter, RSTP, because the title is very long, we're going to call it RSTP, because information gathered from a parent company, Derechos de Fútbol, shows us that around 75% of the questions from the previous exams come from these two regulations. That's not to say that that might change, but as of today, this is the case, and this information is also backed up by reports rendered by FIFA in the matter. So, in any case, we're also going to go through the FIFA, for example, FIFA Code of Ethics, FIFA Disciplinary Code, FIFA statutes, regulations on the clearinghouse, regulations on the procedures in the football tribunal, regulations on how to go about minors and the protection of minor, FIFA guardians, and the like. So there's a lot of things that we're going to go through, again, with special emphasis in these two regulations. The course is going to be a 15-day course. Each class is going to be at least 1.5 hours of length. We're going to do it from Monday to Friday, Monday to Friday, Monday to Friday for 3 weeks. And at the end of the study of each regulation, we're going to question you with a bunch of questions that we have gathered from previous exams and some of the others that we have prepared for you guys in order for you to get you the most information and practice regarding the exam, so you have all the opportunity to really pass the exam. And again, I believe this is the most important added value that the course has. And we spoke about it last week. Guys, I mean, you're gonna benefit from the videos that is gonna be recorded for you to study on your own time, as many times as you like. But we're going live. We're gonna attend to your questions live. We're gonna question you guys back and test you live. And again, once the class is finished, you can contact us through WhatsApp, cell phones, emails, social media, Instagram, you name it, we're here to help you. Really, guys, take that into account. We're here to support you, like you say, on taking football, American football reference. We're gonna take you through the whole 9 yards, but that last yard, you gotta run it yourself, guys. You need to study. We cannot emphasize this enough. It's very tempting, with all the support we're gonna give you, the strategies to take the exam, the tips, the questions, all the information, simulated exams, all this we've got in place for you guys to study, and we're gonna show you how to go about them. It is very tempting to say, I got this with all this support and information. No, guys, you need to study, make no mistake about it, you need to study hard. What we can tell you is, if you do your part, with all our help, you are in great position to pass, and pass with flying colors that exam. That's our compromise with you guys. So after going through all this fuss, I mean, we got to study hard, like we got to get to the classes. After, if we pass, when we pass, we're gonna have to pay $600, and we're gonna have to render a bunch of information. We're gonna be regulated by FIFA. Yeah, that's all true. That's true, and we cannot lie about it. But also on the flip side, there's some benefits to becoming an agent, and it's a very exciting time to become an agent. It's very new, this regulation, this way about how to go about the profession. So the benefits is basically you won't get isolated. because you're going to be able with this license to work in a worldwide basis within the world of organized football system, right? That means you're going to be able to engage and be engaged by a plural number of clients, such as clubs, federations, leagues, coaches, players, and at that, you're going to be able to represent professional clubs, amateur clubs, professional players, amateur players, females. I mean, the spectrum is very, very big, guys. So that would be a major benefit of it. I think another important aspect is, even though it's not mandatory, agents have the option now to resolve their disputes in regards with their clients or other agents in a specialized dispute resolution chamber, which is the agent chamber in the football tribunal. It's specialized by people who only do that and know about that. So that you got that benefit. And I'm for sure certain that it's going to be more efficient and cost efficient in time than if you go to a national court. So that maybe you will have awards that don't even make sense in the context of the world of football. So it's important to have that option. Again, it's not mandatory. You can always go to national courts. And then there is the concept of other services. Other services are defined as the ones that are not football agent services within the context of the football agents regulations. And these other services that we already talked about and we're not going to expand today are not under or not subject to the fee cap limits for agents. So you may agree upon with your client any fee that you may like, usually in market conditions. So those would be, without prejudice to others, the main benefits that we foresee in regards to the FIFA agent regulations. If you don't get a license, okay, there's a dispute going on. We won't enter into that, into the validity and legality of certain aspects of the regulations. You will have to have a license to be a FIFA agent. If you don't, you're going to be isolated. People that enter in business with people that don't have a license are going to be liable for sanctions. So guys, you want to dedicate yourself to be an agent, we recommend you take that license and discuss later. Yeah. So that being said, we're going to make no more reference about any disputes going on in regards to the FIFA agent regulations, because we're going to try to go through them as they are going to be asked by FIFA in the exam. That is, as if they were enforced already and not suspended. Okay. That being said, like we did the week before, let's go over a dry run of what to expect from the regulations on the status and transfer of players. I don't know if there's any question at this point, Pablo, Dani. Okay, ¿estamos bien?
Estamos perfectos.
Belleza.
Congratulations.
So guys, sorry, let me take a bit of.
Drink the water.
Yeah, drink the water, guys. Please
Only
ask.
Water.
I get cotton mouth, so please
water
ask.
And coffee.
Yeah, water and
drink
coffee, right?
mate.
Yeah, and mate. So guys,
and mate.
like all major FIFA regulations, it starts with a definition, right? And these definitions are very important because they have technical meanings within the scope of each regulation, and they intertwine together, they integrated. Yeah. So you will see that once we go through the pertinent definitions, questions will arise, comments will be made, that to say in a manner, in a while you're gonna see when we dive into the regulations that most of the questions that we already had are going to be answered by itself when we go through the regulations. But we are going to address them somewhat when we go through the definitions. In my experience, sometimes I'm going through the regulations, I have a question, maybe I read the next paragraph and I have my answer. Or maybe I read a couple of articles down the road and I got my answer. For those questions that we don't have answers, that's the reason Dr. Bruera is here and myself to help you solve those questions. And if we don't know them, make no mistake, be sure that we will get you the answer. It's okay. Again, we got a lot of experience in taking this exam and taking people through the exam. And I say this very humbly, but it is the truth, guys. So after we go to the definitions, again, we got the scope. These the RSTPs regulate, of course, the status of players, and we're gonna see what's that. Regulate the international transfer system, but it also has guidelines for the domestic transfer systems of each member association, right? We're gonna have dispositions, articles that pertain to labor relationship between coaches and member associations and professional clubs. We're gonna have regulations on female football players. We're gonna have a bunch of information, but again, it's also a lot of mandatory dispositions that the member associations have to comply exactly the way are written, and some they have ample faculties to expand however they may like, right? So, but it's very important in general terms that we understand, in general terms, there might be exceptions, but in general terms, these regulations apply to international transfers and conflicts with an international dimension. If they don't have an international dimension, they will be governed by the member associations under their national regulations. That's in general terms. So that's the important part of the scope. Then we got the status of players. Basically, FIFA only recognizes two types of players, amateurs and professionals. That's it. Primavera, whatnot, that's cool for national level, but at international level, there's only professionals and amateurs, okay? That's important to bear in mind because it's had different implications throughout the RSTP regulations. So we got that. We got also regulations in regards to the reacquisition of amateur status. So if you reacquire the amateur status, you can only do it after 30 days have passed since your last professional game, for example. And in regards to the termination of activity, it doesn't matter if you're an amateur or a professional. After your last official match, you're gonna be registered there for 30 months, right? As a member association where your club is, your last club, right? And that has other implications if you, we won't go into that right now. Registration of players. This seems boring. It's not, it is paramount. It is important. Why? Basically, if you don't register a football player, he cannot participate in organized football. That's it. There's nothing more important than that. And then we're gonna see other situations where the registration is paramount, is a prerequisite, and without that, you won't be entitled to participate in organized football, get the benefits from, training rewards and the like, right? So then we got Article 5bis. It talks about bridge transfer. Basically, you gotta know that the bridge transfers are prohibited. We're gonna go over what a bridge transfer is in the definition. So we'll speed forward to that. Registration periods, same thing. We're gonna talk when we talk about the definition. Player passport is a good innovation. We're gonna talk briefly about it because just to, basically this passport is an electronic passport and it has all the history of the players, clubs, the categories they play, and we're gonna go through that also. International transfer certificate. The most important thing to know is without it, there's no international transfer, and there's a way to ask for it. Dr. Burera has a very, I like the way he explains it. Very simple, but yeah, it's simple, but it's the utmost importance, right? Yeah, guys, you need to register your players. So there's also these positions in regards to loan of professionals, right? And there's a limit to that. We'll go to it when we talk about the definitions also. There's enforcement of disciplinary sanctions by FIFA, disciplinary committee. 12bis talks about the overdue payables and the importance that we put the debtor in default and give them, in this case, 10 days to comply with the payment. Otherwise, there are consequences also. So we're just doing a dry run so you get a taste, guys. Okay, now we're in the world of contractor stability. And this is the most important, in my opinion, my humble opinion, principle in regards to contracts in the world of football. The principle being that a contract can only be terminated because it's expired or because the parties mutually agree upon its termination. That's it. That's the general principle. We gotta honor our contracts, right? Okay, there are exceptions to that. There's always exceptions to whatever FIFA determines, right? But we got exceptions here also. But they all make sense. And it's not that different from regular contracting principles that you might find in law for those of you who are lawyers. They say this is an exam made for lawyers, by lawyers for lawyers. So it's a good thing that we both are lawyers, Pablo. So terminating a contract with just cause means a party that can terminate a contract with just cause. And that would mean basically that if that's the case, if he can prove the just cause, he won't be obliged to pay economic compensation, right? Terminating contract with just cause for outstanding salaries, that's a specific procedure to terminate that contract. You also have to put the debtor in default. This time around, he has to be late in his payment for 60 days, not 30. And then you got to put him in default and give him at least 15 days to pay. So there's a difference. Terminating contract with sporting just cause. This is particularly because of the specificity of sports. It talks about established player, and that in itself is a whole discussion. But we do have that and it's determined on a case-by-case basis. That's one of the least tried justifications to finish a contract, to be honest, because again, it's not that easy. Then we got restriction on terminating a contract during the competition period. That's the general principle. We got exceptions to that. The consequences of terminating a contract without just cause in Article 17, you can put the indemnity in the contract. That's the advisable thing to do, because then we got all these criteria to determine the extension of the tort, the damage, and the compensation. That there are parameters, but again, we'll go over that. Then, okay, we got section 5. It talks about economic rights, and it talks about third-party influence and third-party ownership. Oh man, I moved this. No, let's go back. Sorry, guys. Oh. Okay, down. Okay. What's the difference? Okay. Sorry, guys. I just want you to see it. So third-party influence means a club cannot enter into a contract or any type of a dynamic or relationship that allows a third party to influence their labor relationship with their employees, the transfer politics of the policies of the club, or in any way, shape, or form impact or influence the administration or organization of said club. That's third-party influence. That's prohibited by FIFA. And then we got third-party ownership of economic rights. We're going to explain what economic rights are. It's not the same as training compensation, but basically we got to know that it's prohibited also. And when we go through the definitions, we're going to understand what a third party is, because basically a third party cannot have any ownership of economic rights on a player's future transfer. That's the most important idea right now. Then we got provisions related to female players, and there's of course, because we're different, and I mean it in the nicest way. There's dispositions in regards to the maternity leave. We're gonna see in the definitions. It's very interesting how FIFA goes about it, and we're gonna explain it later on, and then in the course in more detail, right? So international transfers involving minors, guys. We all have the obligation to protect minors. Not because FIFA says so, but FIFA is very hard on this. But again, we got national legislation that protects minors and international conventions that also protect minors. We are all responsible for this. We'll go into the details pertaining to football, how we go about it. And then finally, we got regulations on trials. Back in the day, we didn't have that, right? 1930. We're gonna explain us how to notify a trial, what a trial is. We're gonna see in the definitions, right? And also how long can a trial take, and it will depend if the player is older than 21 or younger than 21. The length will vary. We'll go through that also, and how many trials can a football player do in a year, for example. So that's very interesting. Also, we'll go into detail. We got Section 8 about training compensation and solidarity mechanism. This is what FIFA calls training rewards, and they're different. I don't want to go into the detail of this because these two institutions are very long in themselves, but just know that all the clubs that train the players, in the case of training compensation, from the year that the player turned 12 to the year in which the player turned 21, all the clubs that train that player are entitled to training compensations, provided that player has been registered as a professional before he turns 23. And any subsequent transfer before that player turns 23 is gonna make training compensations may arise again for the last team that trained the club. We'll explain that in more detail and more clearly in when we go to those institutions. And the solidarity mechanism it's not the same and doesn't reward the same. It's different concepts, but basically all the teams now that train and educate the player since the year of his 12th birthday to the year of his 23rd birthday, every transfer afterward, they got a participation of 5% that is gonna be distributed in a pro rata basis, at 5% on the amount of the transfer. So that's basically those institutions in a broad manner explained. When we got basically the jurisdiction of FIFA, the competence of FIFA, the FIFA Disciplinary Commission is competent to establish sanctions. The Football Tribunal has a very detailed competition of which chamber has jurisdiction over which type of disputes. It's very detailed, guys. We'll go over that also. So then there's the final provisions. This is very important, guys. Do not make the mistake to assume that because there's a bunch of annexes that they are less important than the text, the primary text of the regulations. And we'll see why. We got regulations on release of players to national teams. We got rules about employment of coaches. We got the international transfer of players and transfer matching system in detail. And you know what I already talked about training compensation and solidarity? Well, that's just two articles. We have it in detail in Annex 4 and Annex 5. And Annex 6, we even have rules for the status and transfer of futsal players, and at the end, a temporary rules addressing the war in Ukraine. So it's all in the RSTPs, and it's very important that we get familiar with the annexes also. That being said, any questions right now at this point? Está mutado, está en mute.
Perdón. Si solamente vamos a necesitar mirar las regulaciones internacionales de FIFA o si eventualmente en algún punto, en alguna pregunta, hay legislación nacional, ¿no? En general no, ¿cierto? ¿Cómo lo ves? No hay preguntas nacionales.
Para el efecto del examen.
Respecto al examen.
So Dr. Vera asked if for the purposes of the exam, we're going to be evaluated in some regulations other than FIFA regulations. That is to say, by national regulations. No. But we do have to know that association members have the capacity and the authority to regulate themselves in certain manners, right? But that's about it. No questions about, no detail about what Argentina legislation says. The Panamanian, yeah. That's very important. Yeah. So there's a bunch of questions that are self-explanatory. We won't go over them. Former association, former club, new association, new club, official matches. Let's start with protected period. This is very interesting. I'm going to read it and then make some comments about it. sorry, protected period, a period of 3 entire seasons or 3 years, whichever comes first, following the entry into force of a contract where such contract is concluded prior to the 28th birthday of the professional, or two entire seasons or 2 years, whichever comes first, following the entry into force of a contract where such contract is concluded after the 28th birthday of the professional. Okay, this is a good example of, that's a complete definition. And we read it and we say, okay, we got this. And no, we don't got this. This is the explanation. Remember when we talk about the importance of the principle of contract stability? Well, the protected period comes to enhance the importance of complying with that principle. Why? Okay, basically, because if you breach or terminate a contract within a protected period, either because it's 2 years or 3 years, depending on the age of the player, right? If you breach that contract, you terminate that contract within a protected period, you will not only be liable to pay economic compensation, but you will also be subject to sporting sanctions. And that's important because for big teams with a lot of money, this is the deterring factor that prevents them from, terminating contracts that for them is pocket money, because the foreign sanctions are, for example, prohibition to transfer players in a registration period. You can even lose the category. You'll be liable to a bunch of sporting sanctions that are the core business of this important club. So again, it is also very important to understand. And why the difference in the two protection periods? Because experience shows that the older the player gets, the shorter the contracts are. So in order to protect them, that's the reason, okay? See all the comments that came from just a definition of protected period, and we haven't exhausted the institution yet. There's a lot to talk about here. Registration period, a period fixed by the relevant association in accordance with Article 6. This is what we call basically the transfer window. Commonly, we call the transfer window, and each association member have to notify FIFA in a year in advance when those registration periods are going to be in effect, right? And there's 2 registration periods. One at the beginning of the season, that is going to be between 8 and 12 months, and one at the middle of the season, that is going to be between 4 and 8 months. The total amount of weeks that you can have as a member association with registration periods should be no more than 16 weeks. That's important. We'll leave it at that at this point. Season has nothing to do with competitions. That definition is further down. Season is basically a consecutive 12-month period fixed by an association during which its official competitions such as National League Championship and National Cups occur. It's a period of 12 months, consecutive 12 months. That's basically what it is. And each member association determines when it starts and then when it's going to end, of course. It has also to be notified to FIFA. Training compensation, we already talked about it when we were going to Article 20 of the RSTP. And also we gotta know that in Annex 4 is the whole breakdown of what this institution is like. I already explained the 12 years, the 21 years of age, and then if he turns professional before he's 23, all the teams are gonna be entitled to training compensation. We already talked about that. Sorry, I'm going fast, guys, but there's a lot to cover. Again, this is just a peek. We're going to go slower and in more detail in our courses. We got minor, okay? Minor for the purposes of FIFA and these regulations, and all FIFA regulations, is gonna be a player who's under 18. It doesn't matter what national law says or considers an adult to be or a minor to be. For the purposes of what is stated in these regulations, a minor is a person that haven't reached the age of 18 yet. That's basically it. And it's important, for example, for the length of the contracts. Players with younger, that are not of legal age, in this regard, they can only have contracts for up to a maximum of 3 years, for example. It's very important for this to be determined. Okay, academy. The important thing, we're not going to go to the definition, but the important thing about the academy, if it's an independent academy, it has the obligation to report minors, right? But if it wants to participate of the benefits of training rewards, for example, it has to register its players in the relevant member association in order to be a part. Again, the academy, if it makes it that way and it's so decided when negotiating, can have even economic rights in Pablo, lo que estoy diciendo es que las academias, inclusive, si negocian en su momento y están registradas, pueden ser partícipes de derechos económicos.
Los derechos de compensación. Aprovecho, Luis. Sí, perfecto. Y tenemos dos preguntas. Una, si, bueno, creo que ya lo dijiste, la licencia de FIFA te permite trabajar en todos lados y no tenés que sacar más licencia, o también hay que sacar una licencia nacional. Creo que eso ya lo dijiste, pero...
No, it allows you to in principle, it allows you to work in all 211 member associations.
Okay.
There is also the probability that some applicable law in the member association country requires you to do something extra to operate as an agent there. That might happen, but that's a very it's very few countries that have that. I guess France has it. I'm guessing maybe Italy. Don't quote me on that. But the general principle is France. You only need that license, and you will be able to practice as an agent in all those federations.
Y la otra que preguntaba es si la temporada siempre, el inicio de la temporada, si coincide siempre con el inicio del año, que nosotros ya sabemos que no, ¿cierto?
No. That's mostly true in this continent, right? But in Europe, they start in summer and at the middle of the year for us to say easier term, right? So yeah, not necessarily, but they do have the obligation to set when it starts and when it ends, and it has to be a 12-month period.
Okay.
Doesn't matter when it starts and when it ends. Okay, then we got, I guess this is the jewel of the crown in regards to electronic systems for FIFA, right? The transfer matching system. And we're going to explain why. This is the definition, the technical definition, which I don't know. Is a web-based data information system with the primary objective of simplifying the process of international player transfers, as well as improving transparency and the flow of information. Okay, that's great. But we need to know that we have to make the international transfers to the transfer matching system. We got to require the ITC through the transfer matching system. We got to notify about don't let me lie, no me dejes mentir, Pablo. We got to notify the trials through the transfer matching system. There's a bunch of things we need to do, even training compensation, we got to do through the transfer matching system. So since it's been so successful, every time more and more functions are being assigned to this transfer matching system. So we're going to talk about, sorry?
EPP, the electronic passport. Okay,
also, Pablo has pointed out the application of the electronic player passport, which is the information we need in order to assign training rewards, also has to be done through the transfer matching system. So you see, it's paramount, it's very important, and it's also, we're going to see further down, it has created new working opportunities for people. So we're going to go about that also. Yeah,
of course. It's a new profession.
It is. Okay, we got here third party. Remember when we talk about third party ownership of economic rights, that's prohibited. So this is the definition. This is a third party, a party other than the player being transferred. So the player in his own transfer is not considered a third party, but in some other players transfer, it is a third party. Okay, so the third party is a party other than the player being transferred, the two clubs transferring the player from one to the other, or any previous clubs with which the player has been registered. Let me stop here. So, the third party is a party other than the player being transferred, the two clubs transferring the player from one to the other, or any previous clubs with which the player has been registered. Let me stop here. So, the third party is a party other than the player being transferred, the two clubs transferring the player from one to the other, or any previous clubs with which the player has been registered. So, Who can have economic rights on the future transfer of a player? The club of origin, the club of destination, the player in his own transaction. Again, other players cannot be a part, there will be third parties, and any other club or academy that the player played and was training, provided they secure for themselves a percentage of a future transfer. Those then, in that case, wouldn't be considered a third party. If one of those previous clubs didn't reserve for themselves, negotiated a percentage of the transfer, then it also be considered a third party, right? So very important to understand. There's a question. It used to be like the father of I don't want to name players has some economic rights over the transfer of a player. That's under the regulations of FIFA. That's not viable. That's invalid, prohibited even. So we got registration again. But we need to know here that if you're not registered, you cannot play, and that's thus breakdown of the information that the registration requires to be put in. So we're gonna go on that detail, not just yet. And then we got, remember the TMS? Listen to this. 18, electronic player registration system. Okay, I'm gonna read it for the benefit of to know what it means, but it's very, very, please bear with me, guys, sorry. Electronic player registration system is an online electronic information system with the ability to record the registration of all players at their association. The electronic player registration system must be integrated with FIFA Connect ID service and the FIFA Connect interface in order to exchange information electronically. The electronic player registration system must provide all registration information for all players from the age of 12 through the FIFA Connect interface, and in particular must assign each player FIFA with a FIFA ID utilizing the FIFA Connect ID service. In English, in Panamanian English, this is what it means, right? Right, yeah, so this electronic player registration system is vis-a-vis the TMS for FIFA, but at a local level, right? And it has to be integrated with the TMS through the FIFA Connect ID service and the FIFA Connect interface so that FIFA, Big Brother, knows at any moment it so desires what is happening in the lower categories of any given country with certain players. So it's very important. And we're gonna see also how a domestic transfer system must be integrated to this electronic player registration system and again to FIFA. So it's very important, guys, that we understand that not at the international level or at the national level, all transfers must be made electronically now. There's no excuse, because then if it's not done that way, it won't be valid. Okay? We need to get familiar with, at least you as agent, you may not be the one that is using the TMS, but it is suggested that you know how it operates, because for example, if you don't require the admission of the ITC, then the other association member, even though all the tramitation is done, won't send it back to you. So you need to know how these systems work in order to better assess your client and to avoid that at the last minute we drop the ball and cannot get a transfer through because the window, for example. Very important. Okay, yeah.
Acá nos preguntan por qué a partir de los 12 años, que tiene que ver con formación seguramente, ¿no? Con solidaridad. ¿Por qué dice que a partir de los 12 años? Nos preguntan.
Okay, precisamente, okay, yeah. The information gathered is from the age of 12, basically for what you said, Pablo, training compensation generates in the year that the player turns 12 forward, as we explained. So we need the information of all the clubs where the player has been since the year 12. Although we do have the obligation to register players from the age of 10 also. No? But for the purposes of recognizing and assigning training compensation, we need all the information from the player since the year he turned 12. That's the reason, Paulo. That's la razón.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the FIFA Connect ID service, the most important thing that we need to understand is, since all the systems are integrated, the domestic ones and the one of FIFA, through that FIFA Connect ID service, the national members of the national associations are going to assign each player, each club with a special identification that will be it's only for you, and it's going to help you. It's going to help the system identify who we're talking about, because nobody else is going to have that identification number. That's basically the most important thing. We all have an identity after we are registered. That is not non-transferable. You cannot transfer to anyone else, and it's only yours to keep. And FIFA will, if you receive it at the national level, you're going to have it worldwide basis. Okay. FIFA ID, here's better explained. The worldwide unique identifier given by the FIFA Connect ID service to each club, association, player, and football agent. This is an exam question, guys. These are the ones that have an FIFA ID: club, association, player, football agent. I got a question for you, Pablo. Te tengo una pregunta, Pablo. ¿Los estadios no tienen ID?
Que yo sepa, no.
Okay. So, again, confirming, this is an exam question. Who is entitled and obliged to have an ID, a FIFA ID? Each club, each association, each player, and the football agents. And you guys, when you execute contracts where you have negotiated via that be transfer agreements or labor agreements, you have to put your FIFA ID number, among other information. That's paramount for you to then, if anything arises, you can collect your money. It's important, guys. That's your best proof that you worked. So that's also a question for the exam for you guys. That's a nugget. International transfer. Well, let's reaffirm it. It's the movement of the registration of a player from one association to another association. Again, it's not the movement of the player. The player can go. It's the movement of the registration. Again, see how important the registration is? That's what we transfer internationally. And that's
Luis,
what, yeah.
O sea que estamos viendo acá en el comment con Dani, y tienen ID los FIFA. O sea, además del club, los estadios tienen. Mirá.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Buen
thank
dato,
you, Pablo.
buen dato.
Thank
Gracias,
you,
Dani.
Pablo. So, gracias, Dani, también. Thank you, Dani. So, I don't know if this is a FIFA question for the exam, but if someone of FIFA is listening to us, they probably gonna put it in. So they say that FIFA ID is the worldwide unique identifier given by the FIFA Connect ID service to each club, association, player, and football agent. I think in the definition above, also stadiums have IDs. So that's very important. That if you have the question and you have a one that includes stadiums, we suggest you put correct, because you can sustain that that answer. Thank you, Pablo and Dani. Okay. So then we got the national transfer, would be the movement of, again, of the registration, not the player. The registration, the player can go. He won't be able to play if the registration is not in place. The national transfer will be the movement of the registration of a player at an association from one club to another club within the same association. Basically, would be a transfer between Boca and Rosario Central, for instance. That would be
Argentina.
Yeah. That would be the other one. Electronic domestic transfer system. Remember the domestic registration system? Well, this one has to be integrated. So all domestic transfers, what it's called national transfer, has to be registered there. and Big Brother FIFA will know about it. Okay? Bridge transfer. When we saw Article 5 bis, I think it is, of the RSTP, briefly, we said that is basically prohibited. Here's the definition. Any two consecutive transfers, national or international, it doesn't matter. That's why it's important that the systems be integrated. FIFA will know. Of the same player connected to each other and comprising a registration of that player with a middle club to circumvent the application of the relevant regulations or laws and or defraud another person or entity. So, what's the purpose of a bridge transfer? Is a simulation. It's not a real operation. And it's a simulation that aims to circumvent the applications of applicable law or applicable regulations, or to defraud a person or an entity. For example, one might triangulate that operation with two transfers in order to pay less taxes in an unlawful way, in order to not to pay training compensation or to pay less. That would be the more classic examples of that simulation. Very important. If those two transfers are made within the time frame of 16 weeks, the burden of proof that is not a bridge transfer relies on the clubs that are making the transfer. After those 16 weeks had gone by, then the burden of proof changes and it's shifted. Whoever wants to demonstrate that it's a bridge transfer has to do it, no longer you. No longer the club, sorry, that were involved or the player. But if they were in a bridge transfer, they're all liable for sanctions, okay? Purely amateur club. This is one of these definitions of FIFA that, yeah, I'm gonna read it for studying purposes. Purely amateur club, a club with no legal, financial, or de facto links to a professional club that is only permitted to register amateur players, has not registered professional players, and has not registered any professional players in the 3 years prior to a particular date. Yeah, important. FIFA Connect interface, we already talked about how they all have to be integrated together. So this is a technical definition, maybe a special class, Danny, but it's beyond my area of expertise, right? Training rewards. Okay, training rewards is a general term that encompasses training compensation and solidarity mechanism rewards that are stipulated in Article 20 and Article 21 and further developed in Annex 4 and Annex 5. We'll go in detail. I'm guessing there are going to be quite a few questions about it. And we're going to also teach you how to calculate the training compensations and the solidarity mechanism sums that club might be entitled to. We're going to help you with that. Because sometimes you have to do that operation to answer one of the questions in the exam. That's basically the reason. Okay, coach, this is a very important definition because there's some cash jurisprudence in regards to what a coach is. So a general athletic trainer will not be considered a coach. And in the definitions is why. A coach is an individual employed in a football-specific occupation, like goalkeeper trainers. That would be a coach. But a physical guy that trains you in the gym, that wouldn't be a coach. That wouldn't be protected by this definition. So, an individual employed in a football-specific occupation by a professional club or association whose one of these activities. Employment duties consist of one or more of the following: training and coaching players, selecting players for matches and competitions, making tactical choices during matches and competitions, and or usually employment requires the holding of a coaching license in accordance with a domestic or continental licensing regulations. I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna stop being a lawyer right now. I'm gonna tell you something that I experienced in Spain. I studied there, right? I didn't experience in Spain, but I was in Spain when this happened. You know, players like Xavi Alonso, look where he's now. Players like Xavi Hernandez, you can like him or not, but he's the coach of Barcelona. Players like Zinedine Zidane, he won 3 straight Champions League and everything else, right? Players like Raúl González Blanco or Guti, they had to take the federation exam in order to be licensed coaches. It doesn't matter that who can tell one of these guys that they don't know how to coach or they don't know nothing about football or what happens in a dressing room or in a field. No, but they have to do it. So it's very important, guys. Yeah. And a lot of other players. We laugh about it because at some point we thought you got to make an exception, right? You got to. Well, they did it, right? Professional club, a club that is not purely an amateur club, and that definition is already above. Well, this is of course specific for female players. Maternity leave is a minimum period of 14 weeks paid absence granted to a female player due to her pregnancy, of which a minimum of 8 weeks must occur after the birth of the child. These are basically the minimum required of the International Labor Organization, and is adopted by most countries in the world. If you have more favorable conditions in your home country in this regard, can be applied it can be applied, and you don't have to apply this one. If you have more beneficial conditions for the pregnant lady or after maternity leave, better conditions, you apply that, right? And it's important to know that when the player goes in maternity leave, she's gonna be entitled to 2/3 of the agreed compensation salary, okay? Until he returns again. And there are also exceptions in regard to the prohibition to register players in closed periods. When she comes back from maternity leave, she can come back even though the registration period might be closed. We're gonna go in further detail. We're gonna go and talk about the substitute player and a lot of things that come from this definition of maternity leave. Okay, club trained player. Okay, guys. Remember training compensation, training awards, solidarity mechanism has nothing to do with that. Yeah. This, I'm gonna read the definition and gonna explain why it's important, right? Club trained player, a player who between the age of 15 or the start of the season, which he turns 15, and 21, or the end of the season, which he turns 21, and irrespective of his nationality and age, registered with his current club for a period, continuous or not, of 3 entire seasons or of 36 months. So this is important to understand what constitutes a club-trained player, because in the RSTP, we're gonna see there are some limits to the amount of players one team can loan to other teams. At this point today, and it's dropping, the amount of players is 7. After the 30th of June, I think, but for certain in July, it's gonna be 6, and it's gonna stay at 6. The maximum amount of players one team can loan to other teams, different teams. Okay, if you got a club-trained player, it doesn't fall under that restriction. You can, for example, after the 30th of June, you can loan 6 players to different teams and 3 club-trained players, for example. There are some limitations on the number of players you can loan or you can have loaned from the same team, but we won't go over that right now, just to not confuse you. But the main idea is club-trained players are not under the limitations of loan that are provided in the RTP. Trial, a temporary period during which a player that is not registered with a club is evaluated by that club. That's regulated in detail, Article 19.3. And again, even though doesn't require registration, FIFA does need to be notified. And there's a way to go about that. FIFA Clearinghouse, this is one of the, I think if you ask me, one of the great innovations of FIFA lately. You know, it's a financial intermediary, the FIFA Clearinghouse. It has a license granted to operate as an intermediary clearinghouse. And again, since it's a regulated activity and a regulated entity, it's very strict and has to be very strict in regards to the gathering of information about origin of the funds, anti-money laundering, and other anti-terrorism dispositions, etc. Because it is a financial regulated entity, even though FIFA came with the idea. Okay, and FIFA does keep through the electronic player password the information for the payment of the solidarity mechanism and the training compensations. That's the payment that today is making the clearinghouse, but it's envisioned to also have the agent payments done through the clearinghouses and also the compensation for the transfer of players. That's the plan, at least. It's not in place today, just the training compensations and solidarity mechanism. Then we got the electronic player passport that we already talked about. And again, we need the information since the year from when the player turned 12. Okay. Transfer compensation. This is the economic right. The economic rights one has is over the transfer compensation in the language of FIFA. Of course, there's money in a training compensation and solidarity mechanism, and those are economic in nature. But in the context of the regulations of FIFA, economic rights are on the future transfer of a player, and that's called transfer compensation. What means? What's the definition? A compensation which a new club or of a player pays or commits to pay to a player former club in exchange for the former club's acceptance to release the player from a binding contractual relationship. Compensation for breach of contract pursuant to Article 17 herein is not considered transfer compensation. Okay. The transfer compensation is the money the club that is releasing the player receives, and that's a commercial transaction, guys. It's not an indemnity. There's money earned there, you know. The compensation stipulated in Article 17 is an indemnity for a breach of contract without just cause. Are very different concepts, right? So bear that in mind. It's not the same, even though both use the term compensation. Then we got a very specific technical term, and this is in regard to the TMS. It's called the matching exemption.
Luis, okay, ¿te parece que vayamos dejando acá? Porque ya tenemos más de una hora de clase.
Ok, ok.
¿Te parece? Porque me parece que ya es como demasiados conceptos como para transmitir esto y después vamos viendo. No sé si te queda alguna definición así muy importante.
No. Let me just close the idea then. Voy a cerrar la idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfecto.
Sorry, guys. As you can see, it's a lot of material and it's very hard to cover it all in 1 hour. So I try to speed forward it. I hope you get a taste of what's coming in the course. There's a bunch of definitions that we didn't go through, but basically the ones left are technical definitions pertaining to TMS. And we're going to explain that in further detail. Point being, guys, please take advantage of this opportunity if you see that is a good idea for you guys. On our behalf, we are at your disposal. Again, you can contact us through our social media, to our YouTube channel, through email, whichever means you find it, we're going to be there for you. So we appreciate you joining us today and invite you to the start of our course next Monday, 22nd, and we're going to have all the information put in internet so you guys can follow us. So thank you once again and have a great day.
Congratulations, Luis. Muy bueno. Muchas gracias. Excelente. Bien, Luis, excelente.